For this project, I started with a 35 by 40 inch frame. It was actually a framed mirror. I took the mirror out, I sanded it down totally, and then my husband spray painted it white for me. Then I flipped it over and used Gorilla Glue and put it around the perimeter of the back of the frame where the mirror would sit. Then I replaced the mirror and used Gorilla Glue one more time. After that was dry, I took painter's tape and went around the perimeter just as an extra precaution against resin leaks. I probably would have preferred to use a caulk gun for this, but I couldn't get my caulk gun going, and this actually held really well. This project, I'm using the picture of a whale that I found on the internet. My daughter is decorating the baby's room in a coastal theme, and she really liked this whale, so I thought I would try to put it on a mirror. So I printed it out real large, put carbon paper on the back, put it on the mirror, taped it down to the mirror, and then went ahead and traced around the entire whale and the water spout. And this is super easy to do. It shows up real light on the mirror, but dark enough so that you're able to paint it on there. This color I'm using is actually the wall color that she's using behind the crib, and she sent me a swatch, and then I color matched it up at Lowe's, and that container there that I got was only $5, and it's a real pretty, it's hard to tell by the picture, but it's a real pretty blue gray. And so I went ahead and I just painted it out mainly in the blue gray and made a little gray belly on it, and then I went ahead and I painted the water spout. See, I also paint the water at the bottom, but I end up taking that off, and now I'm almost wishing I had left that on and used less glass on it. I continued to paint using a navy blue and the same lighter blue, and just kind of going along the edges with it, and adding a little bit more of the darker blue in the center. And then what I did was I took something like a blush brush. It's a real soft brush, and I blended the darker colors in. And this seemed to work out real nice, and it gave it a blended effect. Continued to blend the darker color the same way over this entire whale. So painting on glass is a lot harder than painting on a canvas, because if you put the second layer on too wet or too soon and the bottom layer isn't dry, it'll actually pull up the bottom layer of paint. And this whale, I actually painted over at one point because some of the paint started coming up, and at one point I actually took the entire whale off with a razor blade and started over again. So now that I know what I'm doing, I feel like I could probably do another one real fast, but it took me a while to figure it out. And then the only good thing about painting on glass is if you go over the lines, you can actually use a razor blade to remove the extra paint. And that's what I did. I went around the entire whale, kind of getting all that extra paint off that I got on there when I was doing the blending. And that works really well. And then next I just added some extra accents on his tail, on his along the edges, and also some white stripes on his belly. And last but not least, I put his eye on. Next, I took the Ashland decorative filler crushed glass that you get up at Michael's, and I actually spray painted 4 containers of it. Here you'll see me spraying 3, but prior to this I had sprayed another one. And when I did the project, I actually only ended up using a little over 2, like 2 1/4 containers. So now I have a whole bunch of leftover blue Ashland decorative filler spray painted glass. Spray paint I'm using is actually a regular spray paint. It's a blue painter primer. It is not translucent, but if you do it light enough and mix it around, you'll still see the reflective silver qualities of the glass and give you the blue color. The resin I'm using for this project is Resiner's Resin. I chose to pour the resin on top of the project first because I felt like I would use less resin than if I poured the glass on first. This way it will have a good basis for the glass to hold on to on the bottom. So after I poured the resin on, I put the glass on, and I worked on those waves forever. Those were kind of a pain in the butt. Every time I would make one wave, I would think I had it too far apart, and I'd have to move over to the other and just back and forth, back and forth. I also put glass on the water spout, and I really wanted to add some other colors to the waves. But because I had a limited time and it took me so long just to get the waves formed the way I wanted, I figured I'd have to add the other colors later with UV resin. I used a kitchen torch to get rid of the bubbles. I use a toothpick to get any sediment out. When I finish a project, I always come back every 15 minutes to check for glass placement, to check for more sediment, to check for bubbles, and retorch if need be. It's in your best interest to read the directions for the resin that you are using, because all resins are different. This particular resin has no VOCs. I do not work with any resin that has VOCs. It has a cure time of 24 hours, a work time of 40 minutes. You can use it for molds. You can pour it up to 1 inch thick, and you can demold after 8 hours. And then at the very top, I put some iridescent glass that I had picked up at Michael's over all the top of the waves, and then kind of created some waves in the water, again with the same kind of white iridescent glass. And then next I used some blue Ashland decorative filler and just went under the white line with it. And I almost wished I hadn't added so much now that I look at it, but it is what it is. And you can see at the very top I propped some things underneath so the picture would be kind of at a slant, so that when I put the UV resin on, it wouldn't drip the other way. So then I just started putting the UV resin on a little bit at a time and putting the UV light over it. This is about 15 minutes and I have it sped way up to under a minute, and just kind of worked my way down, working on a little bit at a time. And the reason why I did that was so that it wouldn't drip out onto the mirror. I didn't want any of the resin to show on the mirror. And like I said, I just kept on working a little bit at a time, putting the UV resin over the added glass and putting the UV light on it. Hey everyone, another project done. So if I had to do this again, and I know I always say this, but I probably would have just painted the bottom and then enhanced it with some glass. Done the edges with the white and then just sprinkled some glass on it and not use quite as much glass on the bottom, but it is what it is. So the most difficult part for me was the painting. And I'm not a painter to begin with, so painting is difficult to begin with, but on glass it can even be more difficult. Because when you go to put a second coat on, you can pull up the first coat and it actually can kind of peel up just like a skin, a paint skin. And if your next layer is too wet or you push too hard, and that's actually what happened to me. And I tried to kind of push it back down, but it left kind of some wrinkles in it. So at one point, I didn't show this, I actually scraped it all up with a razor blade, and it comes off really nice. Paint can be easily removed from glass or mirrors with a razor blade, and that's what I did. And I cleaned it back up, repainted it, and that's when I started watching some different videos on blending paint, and they used the real soft, kind of like a blush brush. That's actually what I bought, a blush brush, and blended it with that, and it didn't disturb the paint underneath as easily. So that's a tip for you if you're not a painter. If you're a painter, you probably already knew that. And then the paint that I used, I actually color matched a swatch of paint that she had sent me, and got this up at Lowe's, and you know, this was only $5, and I found this covered a lot better than I usually when I paint. I just have the cheap craft paint, so I think a higher quality paint you're better off getting, probably for better coverage just in general, whether it's glass or canvas. So anyway, that's just a tip for those of you who don't paint. Anyway, so I hope you guys enjoyed the project. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. That really helps the channel. If you enjoy the channel, go ahead and subscribe. We have the Facebook page going, especially great for beginners because there's so many glass artists on there and everybody is so helpful. Tips, tricks, they're real happy to share the knowledge that they have. And it's really great for people who've been doing it for a long time because there's a lot of different art being displayed, and again, tips and tricks, and you know, everybody can learn something new. So anyway, come join us there, and I hope you guys all have a great day. Thanks for watching.